So at the end of the studio, we're hosting the CEO, the acting CEO of the Hustler Fund. But before we do that, a quick one here. The government is planning to diversify the Hustler Fund products to increase its uptake. The Labour Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui says the government is contemplating adding universal healthcare and housing levy as new products to the Hustler Fund to attract more customers.
7.5 million Kenyans have so far borrowed 39 billion shillings from the Hustlers Fund since its inception. Labour Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui says non-performing loans stand at 30%, with the government attributing the high repayment rate to efficiency of the fund.
Tomorrow is 1 year after the launch, and we have a good story to celebrate. We have touched many lives. We have enabled many Kenyans. And we have even developed and almost matured some products. And that is the real purpose of celebration tomorrow.
To increase the uptake of the fund, Chelugui says plans are underway to expand the fund's portfolio by including the affordable housing levy and universal healthcare as new products to attract more customers.
We are now going to enhance. We'll discuss about the matching of their savings. We'll discuss about other products like housing and low-cost housing, and also access to universal healthcare. So all these are products that we will be scaling up. And through those scale-up products, we will encourage many Kenyans to now participate actively on the Hustler Fund.
The government says the operation cost of the fund have been minimal due to reliance on existing mobile money infrastructure.
And apologies, Simon Chelugui is the Cabinet Secretary or Minister for Cooperatives and MSMEs and not the Ministry of Labour. I'm joined in studio by Elizabeth Nkukuu, who is the CEO, the acting CEO of the Financial Inclusion Fund, or what you call the Hustler Fund. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Probably let's start with the figures, or where the Hustler Fund is 1 year on. How much money have you been able to disburse to Kenyans?
So in total, the total disbursement is about 39.6 billion and growing daily. That is to the individuals, to the individuals. There is also another almost 167 million that has been disbursed to groups. So you remember when we started with the individual business, where individuals who are really not necessarily for business, but even for consumption. In total, we have disbursed that amount of money to about 18.6 million Kenyans. And for the groups, we have disbursed the same to about 23,000 groups. Yes.
Which reminds me, what happened to your daily updates about the uptake of the Hustler Fund?
It's in our website. If you go to our website, the numbers are there. If you follow the Cabinet Secretary, the numbers are there. The Principal Secretaries, myself, the numbers are there. So it's just maybe the consumption, and maybe when the numbers got so huge, people are like, okay, fine, let's not wait, let's not follow as much. But yes, the numbers are released. Yeah.
Based on the disbursement that you're talking about so far, have you been able to stratify the data so much so that you're able to see, is it men who are borrowing more? Is it women who are borrowing more, particularly on the personal loan facility for Hustler Fund?
So if you look, we have analyzed the data across the various matrices, of which gender is one. About 52% of people who have borrowed are men, 48% are ladies. So you can actually say it's really serving across the board. In terms of age, again, you'll see that we have people who are as young as 18, because you have to have your ID, and all the way past 70 years. So in terms of proportions, we would have close to 10% of people above the age of 60. Below the age of 35, we have about 70%. So if you look at, again, the spectrum, 70% of the people that are in the Hustler Fund are young people, and again, cut across the genders. In terms of distribution, we have lent money across the country. All the 47 counties are represented. The bulk of it will really be in Nairobi and the Nairobi metropolis, just because, again, the number of populations and the population that we currently have within the metropolis. And the repayment, again, cuts across. We have a repayment rate of about, an average of about 70 to 73%. the counties within Nairobi and Central actually are repaying better. So you learn a lot when you look at the data. It tells you a lot, which also creates ways and policies of how do you support people maybe around the country. So as we look at the Hustler Fund, it's not necessarily, and it's not only a financial solution, it is also creating a lot of data that is interesting for analysis and just to see what kind of interventions should the government be looking into. Yeah.
And we'll look at whether it has achieved its primary objective, because as it is the Financial Inclusion Fund, see whether it has achieved that. But on a quick one, and this is a question that confronts the Hustler Fund every time it is mentioned, is that from the launching, that is on the 30th of November 2022, to the end of the financial year, that is 2022-2023, there was no allocation in the budget for the money disbursed by Hustler Fund to the public. At least for this financial year, it is factored in the budget. Where did that money come from?
Government has ways and mechanisms of looking at things that things change. So there are mechanisms of incorporating that. So through the supplementary budget, then it was actually introduced. The same thing, if, for example, maybe to bring it home, assuming that this year there was no allocation for El Nino or the rains, you cannot now sit there and say, because I did not budget, I'm not going to support it. So what the government does is look at the priority areas and actually just reallocates within itself and just says, where do we get this money? Because if things are changing, their priorities are changing, you as the government, you have to be diverse. So,
Quite an interesting one. Do you monitor? Because I asked for this money, it's disbursed to me, and we'll talk about the percentage a little bit later. But are you able to monitor the success stories of this money? And not just about the circles. I'm talking about people who are borrowing for personal reasons. Are you able to monitor the success stories, if there are any, or the money was put into good use?
Yeah, we are able to. And one of the things that we did is just across the country, looking at all the counties and seeing who are the top borrowers and what are they doing. We visited them just to see what is your story. So you remember there's talk about someone who has borrowed 1,309 times. That is at the end of October. And what are they putting this money into? They're in retail. So they borrow the money in the morning, they stock their shop. So you can actually see actual growth in that context. Then you can actually also, that is likely when you go to the ground. There is also now a statistical way of checking that. I think one of the key things that I like referring to is a report by Central Bank, which says most of the people now are borrowing and putting this money into businesses. So initially when we started, you could actually have seen that most of that money went to consumption. But over time, as the limits are going to increase, as we're focusing on other different products, you're actually seeing that going into the business. So yes, we are going to work on a study just to be able to put numbers and figures, but it's the data and the people you have talked to are actually, it's actually interesting statistics there.
What is that transformational story that you've been able to record of even that 500 shillings that is being borrowed, of what it has done probably to a startup business or something like that? What have you been able to record, let's say, that one peculiar case of transformation through Hustler Fund?
Let me just go back to what the president talked about. His name is Harrison. He will be coming to the celebration tomorrow because it's good that people put a name to what His Excellency had talked about. He borrows he's in the tuk-tuk business. So what he does is he takes that money, he borrows the money, fuels the tuk-tuk, which does not belong to him, and then he's able to repay. So that is why he has been able to pay. On average, he borrows 3 to 4 times a day. So what that does is it is helping him create a credit history that he will work with. And then now he will be able to be absorbed by the banking sector. That is one. And then the other thing is some of the people are actually taking this money as a way of saving as well. You don't think about it when you borrow 500 shillings, what is credited to your account is 475. You have 25 shillings that has been saved. So that means something. And when we will be looking at the success stories, I think that will be one of the key success stories. People were retiring without necessarily having any sort of income. But in terms of has it achieved its objective, the journey to achieving its objective is actually being worked, because you are actually having people save for their retirement. Yes.
Now that you speak about saving, how much money has been saved so far by Kenyans since November of last year?
It's about 2 billion.
2 billion.
2 billion has been saved and invested, and people are going to get a good return.
Okay.
Which the president will be talking about tomorrow.
He will be speaking about it.
Yes.
But 2 billion shillings. We'll talk about defaulting later. But this 2 billion shillings, you say the government has already invested in, the president to speak about it. I think the biggest question for the people watching us tonight, and what they would want to know, what are the modalities of me getting my savings from the Hustler Fund deductions?
So the Hustler Fund savings is divided into two. So you have 5%. The whole of amount is 5%. 30% of that goes to your short-term savings, money that you can use for your everyday user. Or you are saving, yes, but you would like to you can access it to do something. Maybe you just got a fix, so you can be able to access that money. That is 30%, and that is one of the things that will be happening beginning tomorrow. Then there is the 70%, which is your pension or long-term. Let's call it long-term pension, like long-term savings that will be going to your pension. So this money is really to help you in your old age. So what then has happened is that you have to define a retirement age, and you see people who are in business most of the time maybe do not have a definite retirement age, but you have to create something that you can be able to work as a benchmark. So the retirement age in that case is about 60 years, and people will be able to access the bulk of their money at that point. However, you're dealing with a hustler. So this particular person they are running a business. So you're helping them save, but remember, maybe they would like to expand their businesses. So instead of waiting, I started saving when I'm 18. Instead of waiting until when I'm 60, we are giving options that I can be able to access these funds after 5 years. And so that's one of those are some of the mechanisms that we are putting in place to meet people halfway, to make sure that yes, I'm saving for a certain goal. In the next 5 years is what I want to achieve. So can I be able to get my 30% maybe of the long term?
You've said something, beginning tomorrow for this short-term fund. So what is the procedure if I want to access my savings?
*254# is the path to take. There is also the Hustler Fund app. But for most people, let's say to *254# because most if you're on feature phone, and then you just select Hustler Fund, and then you'll be able to see what do you want to check. You can actually check your savings, and then you can also say, can I get my savings? You'll be able to see how much you've saved on the long term, how much I've saved on the short term.
So you withdraw on the money sending platforms?
Yes, it is credited to your money market, to your wallet. Yes.
This pension money, once a person retires, will they get a wholesome, or will it be piecemeal once you have retired and you're entitled to this savings?
The retirement industry is regulated, so it will depend on the amount of money that you've saved, and depending on whether you could say we are getting a pension, but it becomes really trivial. So that there are ways and mechanisms in which you can access your money. If it's a trivial pension, you are then told trivial is really the minimum amount of money that you need to live. Like maybe if you look at what the government usually say, this is a minimum money that someone should earn. So if it's maybe below that, then it's become trivial. They will give you the entire amount. So those are the mechanisms that we are going to put out and say, what is trivial for a hustler? And then decide how then are they going to access that money.
Does it mean that you have not identified the figure that is trivial?
No, the trivial number is actually is actually regulated by the Retirement Benefits Authority.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we haven't done is to see simulation up to maybe 5 years. What is that amount of money that the highest or the bulk of the population will have saved? Yeah, because you see, yes, there's the regulation, but at the same time you have your own reality. 18 million Kenyans, you have to do the analysis to see how much are they saving. And as we speak now, I think we have people who have saved quite a bit on the long-term savings, which is now the mandatory saving. You have people who have saved over 200, and then there are people who are saving voluntarily. If you remember, the president launched the voluntary savings on the International Women's Day. So we have seen people save over 600,000, 630. Actually, I think is over close to 650. So if you look at those people, they're actually saving for a specific need. So the question is, how do we support them so that they're putting this money and then they get returns that they could not get otherwise on their own, and you make it easy for them to do that. Yeah.
So because normally pension money is contributed through NSSF, in the country, of course, unless you have another private scheme. Is this money being channeled to NSSF or?
NSSF targets, as it is right now, targets the employed individuals. If you look at what is happening right now, for us, we are targeting the individual who is not employed. Yeah. So yes, there will be similarities between what we are doing and what the NSSF is doing. We are looking at the framework that works so that we can know how that is going to be. Yes.
Quite interesting. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, defaulting. There have been figures flying around. 6 billion, it's 9 billion. How much money has been defaulted by Kenyans?
I think the repayment rate for Kenyans, by all means, for the Hustler Fund is really decent at 73%. That is that's a good number. So, and the question is, we should be asking ourselves, why are people defaulting? If they're defaulting. So that's why then you need to do the analysis and say, maybe we are defaulting because we do not know why you should pay back. So one of the things that we're actually doing in this anniversary is to show people why they should pay back. We have to, our aim as government is really to nurture and not to punish. So what we are going to do is to make sure that we are showing you, okay, fine, do you know this person has done ABC, like the questions that you're asking, what are the success stories? So when someone sees someone who has been borrowing 1,300 times, that is like 4 times a day, what have they been able to do? Or why are they doing that? Then we are going to be able to convert that and show people that they should pay. Yes.
Nothing about the figures.
We are at about 73%.
73% repayment.
Yeah. And
so defaulting is about 27.
Yes.
27%. That's still quite a huge figure.
If you compare with the other digital lenders, we are doing much better.
You're doing much better?
Yes.
All right. There's the concerns that complain that people have been borrowing since November and their limit level of years to go up. What is happening?
Wait until tomorrow and the president will tell us when our limits are increasing and how.
Okay.
Because one of the things that we want to, we have, there's a lot of conversation is about my limit not increasing. And we were really trying to settle the product. But tomorrow there will be a significant pronouncement from the president in terms of how the limits are going to increase, how the frequency of increase, and what you need to do for your limits to grow.
What took so much time? Because during his Madaraka Day speech, when he officially launched the MSME and group loan for the Hustler Fund, he also mentioned about the increase in personal loan. What took so long for the Financial Inclusion Fund to implement what the president had said during his Madaraka Day speech?
It's really data analytics because you don't want to give people. Had not collected enough data to be able to know this particular person needs to get to point X. So we were doing the analytics just to be able to be sure that what is the pattern of this person. So right now we have sufficient data that we can be able to say, you know what, this person seems like a good borrower. So if you remember how the initial ones were done, we relied largely on the mobile network operators' data points. Now we have our own data as a fund, and we can be able to use that for scoring and just making sure that people are getting the scores that they really deserve. Yes.
So moving forward, the data you're relying on is what you've been able to collect from the borrowers?
Yes, most of this will be what we have been able to do. Yeah.
Very interesting one. There's the question of financial literacy for a person who borrows money, because it's easy to access money, and I think that is what the Hustler Fund intended to do, to remove all the bureaucracies around accessing a loan facility. But what goes into financial literacy? Are you offering such lessons to the people who borrow this money, and particularly the groups that will be coming to you to ask for the facility?
So yes, and that is one of our key mandates. If you look at our regulations, we must be able to train these people on matters money and what is it that they need to do. And when you look at money, there's money in two ways. This is a hustler. They have their own personal money. How then do they transition that this is business money, this is personal money. So we are partnering with government institutions that are already doing that, so that they can be able to help us cascade that information all the way to the grassroots. So remember, as you're getting your money on the mobile, but at times that training can't be on mobile. So the question is, who is it that we can be able to use to actually reach the grassroots? So that is work that is ongoing, just trying to map the country and just knowing who is the right person to train this. So we shall standardize and simplify, so that if you think about it, most people who run businesses, at times they don't want to do the hard maths. So how do you simplify it for them so they're able to follow all the way to the end? So that is work that is going on, and we will make it very easy for people to be able to follow that. That is one. The other thing is, in terms of literacy, there's formalization of the businesses, because at times you don't get what you deserve because people cannot tell your story all the way. So we will be helping in terms of formalization of businesses as much as possible, and this is through registration of the groups, registration of individual businesses. And if you look again at the growth of our products, we started with individuals, we have gone to individual biashara and business and chamas. Now we are focusing on SMEs, someone who has a story that can be funded. So for us is to nurture and move them to the next level, where they can actually be able to get money, even from the banking sector directly.
You've recorded quite impressive figures as we wind up in terms of repayment, in terms of uptake. But there were funds before Uwezo Fund. Before Hustler Fund, there was Uwezo Fund, there was Youth Fund. But if you looked at their uptake, there appeared to be a kind of disconnect. What lessons have you learned from the funds that preceded the Financial Inclusion Fund to make this a success?
If you look at all those funds, they're very targeted. They're very targeted in terms of who they are serving. So Uwezo Fund will be serving the underprivileged, the women and PWD. Then you'll have Youth Fund focusing on the youth. We have Women Fund on the focusing on women. So for us, we come and look at it in terms of an equalizer, and technology is the equalizer. So one of the biggest success story is ability of the fund to reach as many people with very little bureaucracy. And we will actually, that is one of the key things that really differentiates us. Ability to access your money as fast as possible, and reaching across the country. Yeah.
You're saying we should expect some good news tomorrow from the president?
Yes, a really, really good news tomorrow from the president, and we welcome you to come and celebrate with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. We're talking to the acting CEO, Hustler Fund, the Financial Inclusion Fund, or what we love calling the Hustler Fund. Tomorrow is when they mark 1 year since their launch, and of course they've made quite huge successes. But then we await for that good news from the president. Maybe your limit will go up from the 500 shillings you've been wailing about the last 1 year. It's time for us to put a cap to Prime Edition. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will be putting a cap on Prime Edition. Have yourself a fantastic night ahead. God bless you. Anne Wangeshi was a sign language interpreter.